Hey, what is up guys? Clausnex here. Today I'm going to talk about moral law. Moral law, what is it? I mean, we all understand what law is, and that we have to abide by the law or we could get in trouble. And I don't know what you would call that, the law of the government, of the country that you're in. We all know what law is, and you stay within the rules when it comes to law, because if you break the law, that's just bad, that's wrong. That's what gets you in trouble, that's what gets you arrested, that's what gets people to dislike you and disown you and shame you, right? You want to always stay within the law. So what is moral law? Now, I've been studying moral law through C.S. Lewis for a while now. I'm not quite finished my studying, but I still wanted to talk about it. Moral law kind of changed the way that I saw the world. This is going to be stuff that you knew it existed, but you never really thought about it. So what is a state law? What is a city law? Let's think of one. Don't steal from a gas station. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, you don't own it, you haven't paid for it, and you taking it is theft. So you have to return that product, or I mean, whatever happens, you get your penalty. But that law actually ties a lot into moral law, stealing. We all know stealing is wrong, right? Moral law is something that is encoded in us. We don't need to see a law book to understand that killing is wrong. We all know this. But we also understand that there are cases when violence is the answer and it's the only answer, even if the law says that you can't. Now, to get a better understanding of what moral law is, I think a lot about animals and that it's very primitive, instinctual. Sometimes we think of ourselves when we do something, it was instinctual. Why we know that something was wrong or why we did something is because our instincts tell us to do this. Well, it might be a little bit more than that. It might be this moral law. We as humans know that it's wrong to hurt another human. We know that it's wrong to steal from another human. You know that human has his girl, you don't have a girl, you don't go take his girl because it's wrong. That leads me to even a bigger point. Why do we know that things are wrong? How do we know something is wrong and what is right? You even look at animals, okay, and you know that if one animal is the alpha and he has his mate, you don't go take his mate. That's wrong. That's going to get you killed. But we've evolved much further than animals. We have systems and policies and we know how things work. But we still have our core values of what is right and what is wrong. That made me think about myself as a person. What I do, is it good or bad? The choices that I make, are they good or bad? So I know that there's some sort of ingrainment in my body that I know what's right and wrong. I have this moral law. So what happens when you break moral law? What happens when you do bad things and no one sees you doing bad things? Do you feel bad after? Right? Do you have that guilty conscience? Do you do something bad or stupid you maybe thought was good at the time and then you just have this lingering, uncomfortableness with yourself that carries with you when you're done that act? You broke a moral law and it's stained on your character. Character, who you are. Who you are as a person is created by whether or not you follow your moral laws and the actions you take and the choices that we make, right? That's what makes us, the things that we do. I'm going to talk a little bit more about C.S. Lewis's perspective, just because he does a lot better job of explaining it than I do. Maybe this will help you understand a little bit better. So we as humans, we have this shell, right? This body that does what we tell it, that gets hurt when we hurt it, or gets bruised when we get punched, or can cause harm. We have this shell, this cover that does what we tell it to do, right? And that cover of yourself is what people judge. If they see you doing something, they're judging your cover, they're judging your shell, right? Let's say someone catches you stealing, right? And they caught you, but they're not saying anything, and you didn't get caught by the authorities or whoever was working or whatever it is. They saw you and they just judged you based off of what you just did. They associate your shell with a thief, right? So then you've been stained by that action, okay? Whether someone catches you or not, you have just stained that to your shell. Like think about it like a literal stain, okay? So let's say you committed an act of adultery, another moral law, right? And it stained you. It stained your character. You carry that with you for the rest of your life because it's on your shell. And if you think about it like a snake or something, right? They have their outer layer of skin that they shed and then they go out new, right? But people are a little different because we get these stains and we get these things that we do that make our shell, and that shell doesn't shed outside, it sheds inside. Because inside of that shell, we have our inner self, our true self. You can call it a soul if you want, whatever you want. In my last video, I talked about being alone with your thoughts and being uncomfortable. That is what I'm talking about. So for argument's sake, let's just call it a soul, because it's a lot easier to understand when we say it's a soul. So when you do things repeatedly, it sheds inwards into your soul, and that makes your soul. That makes who you are. You have your outside and then your inside, and the outside affects the inside, right? It makes sense. Humans can only judge by external actions. They can only see what you do and associate that with you. But they don't know what's on the inside. And taking care of what's on the inside is taking care of your spiritual health. It's taking care of your spirituality. So on the other side of the spectrum, let's say you do a bunch of good. You're doing lots of good things. You know, you don't steal, you did something nice for someone. That's not a stain to your character, that's a cleansing of your character. So now when you have good on the outside, that's shedding inside to your soul, and that's making your soul. So if you are doing good things and you mean it, right? Like you really mean it, you're doing decently good things. Or not just doing good things, you're doing what's right. You're not breaking the moral laws of humans. You're just doing the right thing. That transfers inward to your soul, so that maybe when you're alone, you're not going to be uncomfortable thinking about the things that you did, right? On the outside, we have the good and the bad, the things that you do, whether they're good or bad, that affects the outside, right? And then that transfers inwards. But your inside, that's not the good and bad, that's what's created from your actions. That's what's created from your choices. Your soul is affected by the things that you do. So whether or not you're a jerk and no one knows it, it's still who you are and you're still carrying it with you. And if what I just said made you uncomfortable, then it's probably true. That's why when you got people who are repeatedly mean or people who are repeatedly good, it continues, right? There's a cycle that goes on and on and on, right? You do lots of good, you are a good person, you're a decent person, right? You mean well, so you are well. But you got a guy who's doing a lot of bad, and the more bad he does, the more he thinks bad is normal, the more that the inside he assumes that bad is what's normal, and then what you got is bad people. Again, I'm using good and bad because that's how we understand the world. Things that have to do with the soul, I don't think humans completely understand yet. There's a lot more to it. That's more where religion comes in, and how we understand the soul and what happens after we die and what happens, all of that to do with the soul. That's more of a religious attachment and what you personally believe, but we can't deny that we have a character and an inner being that we create through our own actions. I'm going to read you a quote that I read from one of C.S. Lewis's books. When a man is getting worse, he understands his own badness less and less. When a man is getting better, he understands there is still evil in him. That's interesting. If you are genuinely good inside, or you mean well, or you want to do good things, that part of you inside, the more that you take care of that and nurture it, right, and take care of your soul, the more you realize the things that are wrong in yourself. And that's how you can take care of yourself. So once you think about maybe whether you're going to get caught or not breaking a moral law, you know inside what you did. And whether, if you got away with it, good, that's good on you. But it tainted your character, and you know that. You're going to have to face your shadows eventually. Whether you believe that it happens after you die or before you die, whatever it is, those parts of you are going to have to be dealt with. It's just the law of life. Whatever you believe about your own judgment day when you die, that is when you're going to have to deal with those things, that shell that leaked in and made you a good or a bad person, or choices that you're making right now, things that you're doing in your life right now. I remember one day working at my retail job, I was really mad. I was mad at customers and the way that my boss was handling things, and I was just really unhappy with the way I was being treated. I thought it was very unfair. So I justified taking something from the store that I would have normally bought, and I didn't pay for it. I just took it. And I thought, this is my way of getting back at them. This is the way I justify it. But the fact of the matter is that I broke a moral law, and I felt horrible about it. And I had this thing with me. I had it at home, and it felt wrong. I knew that I tainted my character. I'm not a thief. It's not who I am. And I had this object, and the next time I worked, I paid for it, right? I took one off the shelf, and I wrung it through, and I just paid for nothing. But I paid for that last one. And I untainted the act that I did. I cleaned that stain off. So if there's one thing I want to leave with you guys, it's that your actions make who you are, and you have control over the actions that make who you are. And one day when you die and the shell drops and you just have your soul, or whatever it is that you believe, that is, you will be exposed to the universe as to thing that you created. That's getting a little too deep for what I wanted. But the point is that taking care of yourself and making good choices for yourself is taking care of yourself spiritually, right? All this is very spiritual, this talk of depth and soul. It's all very spiritual, and for a lot of people it might make them uncomfortable because this is a whole dimension of health they've never even thought existed, let alone believed in. Thanks for having an open mind about this, guys. I know this video is a little bit longer. I kind of ranted. It is a little bit difficult for me to explain, and I'm trying to explain this in the least biased way, away from the perspective of religion. But if you're religious, I'm sure you're going to see the connections that I've made here. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more videos. If you liked it, give me a like and subscribe. That would be awesome. And stay tuned for more videos. Claus Next out.